Hey guys, Isabel here. Welcome back to Reeled In. Today with me, I have my friend Connor. That's good.
I've been doing some reading
Some readings.
lately.
And we are going to do another Dyad discuss for the newest Marvel movie, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This movie, it has been out for about a week now. Hopefully, everyone has had a chance to see it at least once. I've now seen it twice, and I'm kind of thankful I did because certain things that were not clear to me are a bit more clear, and it makes me appreciate the movie a bit more, but also there are aspects about it that was kind of worsened on seeing it a second time.
Oh no. I've only seen it once.
Yeah. But you've seen like clips and stuff too, multiple
Yeah,
times.
that's true.
So this movie is not what I expected it to be. And I think in part that might be because I personally thought there were too many trailers that came out. And I think there was a little bit too much hype in regards to the movie.
I don't think there was too much hype. I do think that their marketing strategy was really weird because I only saw like post release press junkets, which is like when they do the interviews and they do all the fun games and stuff on all those talk shows. And so I don't know if they just forgot or if someone in the marketing department was like, no, we're gonna do it this way. And I agree. There were too many trailers that like everybody, who isn't maliciously out there trying to ruin everything for everybody else is like, stop. We want to be surprised. And I
Yeah.
was pretty surprised.
I mean, overall, I really did like this movie. It was fun, visually quite amazing at what they achieved. And honestly, okay, so do you agree with me that did you forget that this was a Doctor Strange movie and not a Wanda movie? Because it, like, after I saw the whole movie, it definitely reminded me quite forcefully that this was, in fact, a Doctor Strange sequel.
I mean, at times, yeah, at times it definitely didn't feel like a Doctor Strange film. And like to some people's criticisms, I kind of agree when people say that he didn't have as much character development as around the supporting characters being Wanda and America Chavez somewhat and Christine.
So yeah, I kind of have to disagree a bit because I mean, okay, on upon first view of the movie, I would have agreed with you completely. And like his character, there are moments in the beginning of the movie where they set up certain like subplots for his character arc and they didn't follow through with it. But overall, the second movie definitely felt like a closing to like the first book of Doctor Strange. And then by the time we get the end credit scene, it's like book two is happening for Doctor Strange. That's how I felt, honestly.
Yeah, like I didn't like think that it wasn't not a Doctor Strange movie. You know what I mean? Like I think there was enough. So when people say that there wasn't any character development, I hard disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Hard disagree. That is a bad take because kind of similarly to like I constantly compare him to Tony Stark, right? Like their egos are up here and they're very similar. Um the whole like younger super powered person who because they're younger and they're a little more childlike they have a little bit different of an introspective. So I think having America team up with him did a lot for him because
Mm-hmm.
of the influence that she had from her backstory and then from what she experiences throughout the movie. So I mean, like it, considering they jammed as much as they did in 2 hours, like it wasn't really a gripe for me. Like I actually very much enjoyed this film. I feel like I'm gonna pick out things the second or third time once I, eventually get to go out and do that. But upon first glance, I think it's just one of the favorites. And it's not
Really?
just because
Okay.
Wanda's in it. Yeah. I like the it's the energy. It's
Mhm.
the energy for me.
I think this is the one time, because you know me, I usually don't go in with expectations, but I think I fooled myself and I went in with energy, like energy and vibe and tone um expectations, and I don't think they were really met. But I don't think it's my like ultimate favorite Marvel movie, but like it's pretty good. Like I enjoyed watching
Like
it.
it's top 10 for me. And by
Yeah.
now there's 30 films, so that's kind of saying a lot.
Yeah. But in terms of Strange's development, I do definitely agree with what you're saying and how he's almost learning how to be, if not a parental figure, definitely like a sort of guardian figure, and actually like a good, like a decent one. And I said this in my review after I first watched the movie,
Mhm.
that I kind of wonder if he kind of remembers a little bit about what happened with Spider-Man in No Way Home, and if he feels a little bit guilty with how he himself handled that situation, and that's why, because he's a little like, in terms of his interactions with America, he's more gentle and more like willing to kind of hear her out and like help her through the issues that she's going through.
Well, see, right off the bat, let her call him Steven.
Yeah.
So you know, instead of going, just call me Steven. No, call me sir. I think sometimes the younger characters, they can either be really, really annoying or they can be really, really helpful, or both. Having, because she's a foil, you know,
Yeah.
she's the complete opposite, like her vibe, right?
In terms of America's character, I wasn't sure how she's going to be portrayed in the movie. And I do think she's an interesting character. My only one concern, because obviously, like, she's probably going to come back in the future of the MCU, but my only
Sure.
concern is that, like, she was kind of in this movie because her powers only have like one specific purpose for this movie. And that's an issue I had overall with her character, was how they dealt with her powers and how she learns, or lack thereof, to like reuse her powers. Because how is fighting, like, how does she use it in like a fight, you know, like a big Battle of New York fight? Like, how does she use that power to be helpful, is my question.
I don't know enough about her powers from the comics to answer
Neither do
that.
I.
I can only make assumptions, but based off of that, you know, it's very brief, but based off of um the fight towards the end where she's going toe to toe with Wanda, I think there's more to her powers that
Mhm.
we as an audience and she as a character does not yet know. I understand that people have that gripe, um, and I get it, and it kind of sucks too because like she is a very important character in terms of like representation, but also
Mhm.
with the whole thing with the multiverse.
Right.
So I think they like sort of touched on the multiverse part of it. You know, in the future, I definitely would like to see a lot more character development, and I mean it'll come in time, I'm sure, because I mean
Mhm.
just look at Wanda. um the way that she was introduced, you know, is it's kind of similar, right?
Mhm.
So that being said, I would love to see a lot of future stuff with the two of them, but you know, more specifically, I think she'll have her time. I just would really like to see that because
Mhm.
she is a Latina character. She's an LGBT character, and Xochitl Gomez is just adorable. Um, so you know, I would love to see a lot more, you know, depth.
But she's also like, for people who are criticizing her, because I'm not really criticizing her, I'm just like kind of curious about her whole story. And that we didn't get too much of it actually in this movie. But the girl's also 14 in this movie.
Yeah,
So like she's acting like a 14-year-old.
yeah.
But in terms of the movie itself, I think, because some Marvel movies can be all over the place, but I think this one, it like set itself up pretty well. So like the scenes that followed, the first scenes, like there were hints in the earlier parts of the movie that, you know, came full circle at the end. So because some Marvel
Yeah,
movies aren't good at doing that, but I think this one did that pretty well.
I think that's why I like this one.
Yeah.
Because the pacing, I have to see it a second time. But like initially, like the pacing wasn't something that was like super weird to me. Like normally if it's really bad, like I'll notice it right off the bat. I kind of like how fast paced it is, to be honest. But it definitely feels like a Sam Raimi film. I know that's people who are either impartial or they're defending it or are able to recognize that Sam Raimi really just puts his whole foot in the door.
And I want to kind of touch on something that you once mentioned to me, and I also did research on it after having watched this movie. You said that because Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, is a Nexus being, she technically should not have, other hers or other variants or something. I forgot exactly what you said, but it's something along those lines.
I was questioning the Nexus theory of not having a variant because she's a Nexus being, but Wanda Maximoff is not a Nexus being. The Scarlet Witch is a Nexus being, and this particular Wanda is the one and only, as far as I understand, is the only Scarlet Witch. So there's not another Wanda Maximoff like our Wanda Maximoff, but there are still other Wanda Maximoffs who have a similar power, who still get their power from the Mind Stone.
Okay, so the 616 Wanda is the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
And so she should technically be the only Nexus being. Like, I don't think Wanda 838
version of herself.
Yeah.
So 838, because 838's one that we see her use her powers. I know people can argue that like, oh, it's because 616 Wanda invaded 838's body, but we see when they confront each other, she uses her power. She tries to defend the Billy and Tommy. Also, I think you said it first, not me crying over a song about ice cream.
Literally, yes, not me crying over ice cream. As if I haven't done that enough in my life. But going back to the Nexus thing, that makes me question because two Nexus beings cannot exist on the same plane in the multiverse, which is actually why 616 Wanda projected herself into 838, because she couldn't physically
be there.
Yeah, because bad things would happen, essentially, which also leads me to the end credit scene. Briefly before we actually dive into it, Doctor Strange created an incursion, perhaps because there was a brief moment when both Wandas were together.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's the incursion that happened. Okay, so a lot of interesting characters came in through here. One character who I like the character design of this person, but I'm disappointed in how the character was used is Mordo.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about something. I am so mad. They did my boy Mordo so bad because he is dripping. I was like I was distracted by that for a while. And they totally backseated him, or they benched him, and I was so mad because I kind of see what you're talking about with the misleading trailers and stuff. Like, I get that they're trying to surprise you, but they definitely made me think that he was going to have a bigger role in this film. But all of his screen time is in all of the trailers. If you take all the TV spots and the big trailers and everything else and you put them all together, like, that's most of his screen time.
Right.
And I am so mad because the end credit scene for Doctor Strange 1 also set him up to be the next big bad for Doctor Strange.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the fact that it wasn't even our Mordo just makes me really mad.
Yeah. See, I'm mad at it not because of like the character itself exactly, but just because of continuity issues. Because, like you said, I
wanted to see him so bad.
He's set up to be the person who is trying to get rid of all other sorcerers, essentially, like people who can use magic and are sorcerers. He's trying to get rid of them because he doesn't believe in the whole system anymore.
Yeah, like, I thought he was going to team up with Wanda, and then Wanda was going to be like, no, I have my own thing to do. Thanks.
Yeah.
And they're just
I don't know. I feel like the entirety of Doctor Strange 1, like the ideas that it set up for future key points in the MCU was just kind of all scrapped. But also there was this one line, I forgot what the line was, but it's between or it's when Strange is talking to America because Mordo was like, coming out of the sanctum. And the line made me think that there have been battles previously between Strange and Mordo, but they've all happened off screen. And this is something like Mordo is a person that Strange regularly has to deal with. I forgot the line exactly, but it's when, because America asks who this person is, and Strange, is explaining, and he's like, we've had like it just seems like between the events of Doctor Strange 1 and now that they've met again, essentially. And so I'm kind of like,
I hope that's not the case.
Me too, because I'm like,
because I wanted to be there.
Yeah. Like I wanted to see it all happen.
Like I like the heroes and all, but I really like Mordo too. You're a bad influence on me. I'm starting to really love these villains.
What can I say? I'm a villain lover. They got interesting thoughts. They're just interesting, man. Speaking of villains and their book club, was I the only one who thought that the Darkhold was a lot harder to destroy than just stabbing it?
No, I was surprised.
I was surprised too. Because even the second time around, I was like, is this knife special? Is it enchanted? She just pulls the knife out of her belt.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was because it was like a sorcerer knife or...
Mm-hmm. So that was a little weird to me.
It was a little convenient.
Yeah. And I think what I was hoping this movie was going to do, and that it did not do, was explain who exactly, what, how, when, where, why the Scarlet Witch is. Because that is what the end credit scene of WandaVision sort of set up, was that question.
Sort of. So I think similar to some other things, I think everybody kind of needs to have their solo moment. And this was not a solo film. Like they were trying to jam a lot of things and a lot of people in 2 hours. And because it wasn't really like one, like it's called Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but like it's kind of not, there's no like hierarchy of characters really, think about it.
Yeah.
At least between those three, between Wanda, America, and Steven. So there are rumors of a solo Scarlet Witch film, which or project of some sort, which I obviously want.
I need that to happen.
I need that to happen. But I think that would be the appropriate time to explain that. Some people don't like Wanda's character in this, some of which are really bad takes, mind you. But we don't need to talk about those people because we know that they're bad takes. But some people are upset that I think her character's a little abrupt. I kind of thought that at first, but then upon brewing in my thoughts a little bit, like the end credit scene from WandaVision sets it up. But secondly, another really important thing that I think people are forgetting is that the majority of WandaVision is told from her perspective. So there are things that we don't know because Wanda doesn't know them, because it's told in the third person from her perspective. So the fact that one's all like light and bubbly and she doesn't necessarily seem like the villain, like I'm sure if you took it from the perspective of Sarah, aka Dottie, right? If you went inside of her mind trying to fight Wanda, it would be a very different show.
Right.
So I actually don't think that it's that out of place. But it's some of those things that like they aren't spelled out, but they don't need to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like don't make it too easy for the audience. And I think a lot of Marvel films do that. And it really doesn't need to be done.
I do have to agree with you. There's just like one, because I'm always here for Wanda, I'm gonna be honest. But this is not how I thought she was gonna try and search for her children. And I think like I was okay with it, but there was just like this one little part of me, and I'm sure this is how like the audience is supposed to feel, that was like didn't like it.
I see that sort of like some people are like it made it very hard to like her. It's like, well, hold on.
I've always
Oh,
liked
that's
her.
not true though.
Yeah. I've
It's there's a difference between liking a character and or agreeing with their motives, but
mhm.
there's also that in between space of understanding. So I
Yeah.
sort of, it's harder to understand. It's even harder to agree because what she's doing, because she is so unhinged,
Mm.
and because what she's doing, she doesn't realize that obviously is so incredibly insane. And obviously it's villainous, but like the understanding I think should come from the fact that she has, because she lost vision, she lost her
Twice,
brother, she
thrice,
lost vision twice,
three times, technically.
three times, that's right, three
Yeah.
times, one of which she had to do herself.
Yeah, exactly.
She had to, she like that. I think that's what fucked her up, is the fact that she had to do it herself. It was basically for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because Thanos went back in time, did his own little thing. And so she tries to grieve with that, create the hex. The
Mhm.
hex really didn't work out, but she has her kids,
Yeah.
and the kids didn't work out. But people who are a parent, who are parents, and like they genuinely care about their kids, like they would go to the ends of the universe, or in this case universes,
Mm-hmm.
make sure that they're safe and that they can see them and that they're loved, etc., etc. So like, and don't forget that the Darkhold has corrupted her. That's what this whole thing is all about.
Right. Which
So,
I do have a comment on for later.
and it didn't really, I enjoyed, as awful as things that she did,
I enjoyed
I
Savage
still
Wanda.
enjoy her character.
Yeah. Yeah. I never really agreed with the way she's doing it. But I was here for her. So I don't know what that says about me as a person, but
What, do you like Anakin Skywalker?
we'll talk about that. We'll talk about a different thing.
Well, I'm just saying, just think about it. They're kind of similar.
Actually, I guess I'll get into it now. What I talked about. Okay, so with the Darkhold, with Wanda, this is the one thing that I saw upon my second viewing, that I realized my interpretation of the first viewing was in fact incorrect, and made me like even more sad, like with the whole Doctor Strange movie thing. In terms, okay, so when Wanda is attacking the Illuminati and Professor X telekinesis his way or whatever he does. I haven't seen X-Men, I'm sorry. But he like invades Wanda's mind essentially. And you see Wanda like trapped in rubble, right? My first thought was that this is like not 838's consciousness, but just Wanda, like 616, like Wanda's whole consciousness. And the fact that, her using the Darkhold kind of unleashed the Scarlet Witch inside of her. Like the person doing all this damage was, in fact, not necessarily Wanda herself, but her Scarlet Witch alter ego. That is what I thought upon first viewing, and it made me feel a little bit better about the actions that are happening and that the things Wanda is doing. But upon second viewing, I realized that the conscious was only 838 being trapped in the rubble because 616 Wanda's dreamwalking. And so like 616 Wanda is actually doing all this stuff. Like, yes, she is still corrupted by the Darkhold, but it's still in some sense her and not strictly the Scarlet Witch.
Oh, see, I kind of thought something similar, just not to the extreme that like it's like the division of Scarlet Witch and Wanda is like two entities. Like I saw that as, like you said, like a Wanda overall, but I saw that as like a Wanda overall because I would assume that all these Wandas come from the same background or something that's like pretty inherently similar to it. Yeah, I think I saw it exactly that way too, and that the Scarlet Witch is like, no,
Yeah, exactly.
That's it hurts. Stop it. Stop it.
You can't pull mind tricks on the mind trickster, the Scarlet Witch.
That thing was spooky.
Yeah, horror movie. Hello.
I I actually really enjoyed her being that she is the boogeyman of the film,
Hmm.
and I love that
Me too. It was one of my
because
favorite parts of the movie.
she's scary.
She is scary.
If we want to move on to the Illuminati scene, I want to hear your thoughts first because I know you know mine.
I, first of all, I couldn't stop laughing. I was and my mouth was hanging open the whole time. And I think like we all knew Wanda slash the Scarlet Witch was powerful, but this I think really showed just how powerful she is.
Apparently, according to Elizabeth Olsen, she thought they were making it too hard for her
What do you
because she
mean?
was so. I've been watching all the press junkets, and she originally read the script, and she's like, "You guys are making it too hard for her," and then she realized she's in a different Wanda's body, and to quote her, she said, "I'm in a less oiled machine."
Mhm.
Or a less oiled version of Wanda. It's like trying to drive a bad car. That's I think what she said exactly.
Mhm.
Which makes sense. But that just makes you think if if eight or if 616 Wanda was there, I don't think they would have lasted a second.
No.
Which is which would have been unfortunate because you wouldn't have had
Spaghetti Reed.
spaghetti man and what that mouse do.
When that first happened, I think I squeaked. I think I made a noise.
I gasped. There was a kid behind me, obviously started crying and left. Thank God.
Yeah.
Because
Don't really bring your if
I
they're
would have.
under
Oh my God,
10.
yeah, yeah. Public service announcement. It is scary. It is a horror film. Do not bring your children under the age of like I'd say
12.
10
Yeah,
or
10, 10,
12.
12, 10,
10
12.
to
Yeah.
12, depending on what they're able to handle. Like,
But see, no, but that whole thing now is still that's still 60 or 616 is Wanda's doing, which is I think makes me a little bit upset. I think I was really here for the fact that Scarlet Witch took over, but that's not true. It's just corrupted Wanda.
yeah, well, I think they're one and the same. So it's not like a like it's not like as far as we know anyway, it's not to compare apples to apples an Anakin Vader situation where they're two different people. Like in their heads, they're not two different people. In their heads, they're one person.
See, I thought that differently because I think this Scarlet Witch has been around a lot longer than Wanda Maximoff herself. Like not in not in a corporeal form, but the thought of her, which is a weird thing to say, but she's been known a lot longer. Like the temple that she's in at the end is thousands of years old, probably like millennia of years old or whatever.
It's more stuff for us to explore.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
which is why I'm pretty sure, and again I'll talk about this towards the end, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be more Wanda in the future.
Oh, for sure.
And now I feel like we've been talking a lot about Wanda, and this is a Doctor Strange movie, so I feel like
we're also Wanda stands though.
We are Wanda stands. Yeah.
I'm in red. You're in red. I've been reading. I've been having the same dream every night, and every morning the same nightmare.
Your kids aren't real, Wanda. How rude. Okay, but something I also noticed, and I want to know if you noticed it as well. Quickly going to Doctor Strange here.
Oh.
That I know. We'll get back to Wanda later. Don't worry. But
good.
The 616 Strange, in my opinion, based on what we've heard through dialogue and flashbacks, the 616 Strange is the ultimate Strange because every other Strange in every other multiverse / universe always makes some devastating mistake or choice that leads to their corruption and or death.
So would that make him Superior Strange? Which we didn't hear any of those names. I think I assumed that 838 Strange was Superior Strange, but obviously not.
I thought what if Strange was Superior Strange?
I don't know.
Because there's Doctor Strange 616. There's Defender Strange, the ponytail guy. Evil Strange. Oh, Sinister Strange is the one in the just the
The
crumb.
eyeball,
Yeah, the eye, the third
which
eye.
was weird. No, I mean like it physically looked weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I don't mean to gripe on the VFX.
It's the third eye is like a symbol of like, knowledge as well as like enlightenment and kind of like sixth sense sensitivity in a way. But here they used it for evil, like to represent evil. But also because I think, and the reason why, as I said earlier, why 616 Strange is like, I guess we could call him Superior Strange at this point. But I feel like 616 Strange always kind of learns from like other hymns, even though he hasn't met them. Like he learns from his situation, like all the situations that he finds himself in, which I don't think the others really were able to do. And I need to ask a question because this is also a theme that I saw. Why do all of the other Doctor Stranges have like an obsession with Christine and or having all the power? But with Christine.
I know, like that's kind of like his one gimmick.
Yeah, like the reason why he makes all of these bad choices because of Christine. And also being, I feel like he needs to have.
But isn't that part of his infinite time loop?
What?
Right? Remember from What If there was like the infinite time loop or whatever it was called?
Oh, and
so,
that, yeah.
So is that kind of the crux of that for the character? Yeah, is that kind of like the pinnacle of his time loop, is that weird romantic relationship?
Well, see, in that universe, Christine's death was a fixed point. So maybe the fact that these Doctor Stranges will never end up with Christine is like a fixed situation in any universe he finds himself in. Because it's also kind of what I meant when I said I thought this movie was like the closing of book one, because when Strange replaces the watch face, it's kind of like his closure on, like it's him accepting that it's okay that he will never be with Christine. And so he fixes the watch face and he, puts the watch face away. And then by the time the end credit scene character comes, that's his new chapter. That's his new book starting, book 2. So we've been talking about how powerful Wanda is, but Strange can control the dead, which I mean, like
he was a formidable opponent, I'd say.
Yeah, like that's a pretty powerful power to have, to be able to control the dead and command them like to your will, essentially. So that is one thing I do like about Doctor Strange, is he always pushes the boundaries.
He sure does. There's argument that is why the outcome of our Infinity War is the way that it is because he went through, obviously, as we've seen with the 838 Infinity Saga, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. You have different people involved, obviously, but it was a different outcome. And bro is just just chilling on. There's speculation that when he was going through like astral projecting all the potential futures, that there was only one where he survived because he's selfish.
Oh.
But also Tony Stark is selfish because that was the only one. If you think about it, like that could have been the only one where he didn't die.
I feel like that actually makes a lot of sense, because the one like subplot for Strange's character that they had at the beginning and I felt went nowhere was when the other doctor, I forgot his name, but
the anesthesiologist.
Yeah, and he was like, was that really the only way? And like trying to make him feel guilty about, choosing the way he chose. Because it's mentioned like twice, that whole situation, and then not mentioned again in the movie. And so I was like, okay, that's a cool subplot for a character growth that I thought was going to happen and then didn't really go anywhere. But now that you said that, I feel like that could that could be a thing. So quickly, we talked about Wanda Strange. I want to quickly go back to America. So Zombie Strange gets his way to the temple, and in order for America to realize her true potential, he gives her a pep talk. Which
He winked at her too.
He winked at her, which I'm down for, mentally, elevating someone. But I would have liked a little bit better, even if it was just like a minute long, for maybe just like a little training or like some sort of thing like that for America.
Yeah, or a little more togetherness, a little more introspective.
Yeah. But then America does gain control of her power because she knew how to do it all along. And then she gives Wanda what she wants. And this is the scene I've been waiting for, is the scene with both Wandas together. Yeah, tears literally. And as I said earlier, could be the incursion point that has happened, but I do think it was a little bit rushed.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have a little bit more of an interaction between the two Wandas, I think. And if you're gonna theorize that, she broke the multiverses, like her existence, it wasn't necessarily just Strange. That she broke the multiverses. But I think, yeah, I agree. I would have liked a little bit more, just because, like, emotional value, because people were sobbing. Like, I heard people like,
yeah.
And then it just kind of cuts.
But then but this is what I like about Wanda's character so much. Even though she has literally gone, like, she is the villain, the antagonist of this movie, essentially. And she's gone through and she's done all this stuff. But at the end of the day, Wanda always does the right thing, which is something that I love about her and her character. Because like Westview, like you said, it's told through her perspective, so we don't think it's as bad as it actually is. But in reality, pretty intense of her to do to a whole town. But then she chooses not to be selfish at the end of the day, and she releases everyone, and she releases the town. And now she literally destroys the whole Darkhold in every single universe that it exists. Oh my God, that it exists in. And consequently, as we think, she also destroys herself in doing so. But she ain't dead. Okay, honestly, okay, admittedly, 616 Wanda could be dead. But I think, and if that is the case, I think 838 Wanda is going to be like who they're going to go forward with, because I can tell what they're doing throughout all these movies. They're setting up, if not exactly, then a sort of something similar to Young Avengers, because Kate Bishop, I think, is part of Young Avengers. Someone else's that showed up, I forgot who. But so are Wanda's children, Billy and Tommy. So you need the children somehow, which is what I thought this movie was going to do. Was 616 Wanda was going to successfully get her children back, not necessarily through the means that she went through, but somehow was going to get her children back. And then we were going to continue with the building up of like Young Avengers. So you do need Billy and Tommy at some point. 616 Wanda, as we have seen so far, cannot just reconjure for some reason Billy and Tommy. And if both Wanda's creating an incursion, if that theory that I had is true, then 838 Wanda is going to be, in the thick of it, trying to stop this as well, I feel like.
I still don't think that our Wanda is dead.
Yeah.
But like I said, like, I noticed this the first time. There's a big pink puff of magic. The temple is falling. So what that necessarily means, I don't know. But I do, or rather, I would like to assume that is not like the Wicked Witch melting point, where like you destroy the witch and she disappears in a pink puff of smoke.
Right. So that's my thoughts on that whole thing. Also,
I still think everything you said is valid. I just don't think that Wanda is dead. I think it will be more complicated than anybody realizes.
yeah, because you also have White Vision to deal with. Vision is still out
Right.
there, so
Right.
that storyline isn't completed either.
Right.
Okay, so now we get to the closing of the movie. America's in Comertage, learning magic, and we get a line from Wong. I've seen this movie twice, and I still can't tell exactly what the line is because it's said very quickly. And Wong kind of like he has like a very gruff voice. Sometimes it's a bit hard to like hear exactly every vowel and syllable he's saying. But he says something to Strange along the lines of another kid to train, which made me think of either Shang-Chi, Katie, or Ned. Something's going on in the background, but I don't know what it is.
So Sean isn't, I think, as much of a kid as Ned is.
But yeah, that's
like,
true. Yeah.
Any one of those three, though. I mean, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, because we already see that Ned can use
both
magic.
of them have been set up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll set up Ned as the Hobgoblin, which I don't actually want to see. I just want to see Ned be happy.
And then the very last scene of the movie, I believe this is still 616 Strange. He falls to the floor, massive headache, and all of a sudden, third eye pops open on his forehead, which I didn't like because I think that's really weird. I also, like you, am disturbed by the third eye and the way it like physically looks on, the people. But the one thing I do like about it is that they included the consequence for Doctor Strange using the Darkhold. And I don't know if this means that.
I didn't put that together.
Yeah. Consequences. You always include consequences in your stories, guys. And then we see him again in the end credit and he's fine. Still has the third eye, but he's just walking around chilling, which makes me kind of nervous that he has accepted this evil part of him. Yeah. So I'm very intrigued for the future. But now let's get to Clea. Did you know that was her name?
I read it somewhere. I did not remember. You know me, I don't remember names well.
Well, I mean, upon first watch of the movie, I did not know.
I was afraid because I thought she was from Eternals. I'm like, God, I don't want to have to watch this movie.
I mean, I was like, she's definitely not from the like group that was in the Eternals movie, but just from the way she dressed, I was like, is she an Eternal? Had no idea who she was. Okay. But she is Clea, who is the niece of Dormammu, which is the villain kind of from like the first Doctor Strange movie. And she is, as you said earlier, she in the comics is Doctor Strange's love interest. And I think Kevin Feige actually confirmed that Clea was going to be his future love interest in the movies. And she rips open a portal to the dark dimension where Doctor Strange first fought Dormammu because of an incursion that happened based on something that he did, I'm assuming, in this movie.
There's also still Kang out there.
Right.
Kevin Feige came out and he's like, yeah, so Loki, yeah, that's what broke the universe. Mm-hmm. And that's why this stuff is happening.
But that's also interesting because we talked about earlier how Wanda is a Nexus being. Every Nexus being in whatever universe they're in is monitored by the TVA and the Timekeeper. It's not that there's not one and the TVA is in shambles. The reason why the events that happened in this movie were possible because of Loki and Sylvie and everything that happened.
Yeah. Also,
so my thoughts on the movie as a whole. Surprisingly, this was not, for me personally, this was not as emotional as I thought it was going to be. I expected to walk out of the movie theater devastated. Like someone's gonna have to carry me back home. Like that's what I expected. Didn't happen. I was quite fine leaving the theater, actually. So
I wasn't.
You weren't fine?
No.
I also thought this movie didn't have too many stakes. Like when Wong was thrown off the cliff, I almost didn't even care because I knew he wasn't dead.
I did the whole like back in my seat and I kept telling myself, I'm like, he's not dead. And then he wasn't dead. I'm like, oh, good. And I knew that because it had been a while since we had been to the temple. Yeah. And then you just see the side side of the cliff. You don't even cut to her, which
Mhm.
again, some of these cuts were a little weird. Some were amazing. But some of these were like hard cuts. It's like
Also, a thought that I had while I was rewatching my review, so I could highlight key points I wanted to talk about with you. If back to the discussion on if 616 Wanda has in fact perished, and then the story will go to 838 Wanda. If 616 Wanda is in fact dead, that means the spell she put onto Agatha has lifted, and a House of Harkness is coming in the future.
Well, I think the death of the Illuminati, and if you want to talk about it, we can. I for one am glad that they all went. I think it's kind of fan service, and so a lot of it was actually very wow factor. So I think that's why it didn't necessarily feel like it was too heavy.
Well, I think the Illuminati worked well with the movie, but I think it only worked well because they were limited to that little bubble that they're in, that one building.
It worked because they were all yeeted.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind having Peggy Carter in the future, and be honest. I liked her.
Apparently you're like the only one.
Really?
Yeah.
I was like, Peggy Carter! Like when the shield was thrown, I was like, it's Captain Carter. That being said, though, talking about the Illuminati, I'm glad that there weren't too many cameos in this movie, because I think people thought this was going to be like the movie of cameos.
Yeah. I was also the only person who reacted to the X-Men theme because I knew what that was. Music, I know what that is. And nobody reacted until he actually like physically showed up.
Mhm.
But I was like, does nobody know the original X-Men theme song? I didn't even watch the series, and I just know what it is.
Yeah. Isn't the music from the cartoon one?
Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I
think for all the right reasons. I do want to see it again. I gotta wait for one of my friends to come back from vacation. Is it perfect? No.
Mm-mm.
A lot of my favorite films are far from perfect. One thing to keep in mind, it's a movie. Don't take it too seriously.
Yeah. So I also enjoyed this movie. I'm excited for the future, all the future things that it sets up for Doctor Strange, especially for Wanda. And I just want to know more about the Scarlet Witch. I really would like to know more. Very intrigued. Very intrigued.
Can't wait to see what they do with America Chavez.
Me too. Yeah.
Also, talk about besties. I think her and Kate Bishop are going to be like this, or possibly more. I think in the comics, the comics are actually a little bit more than friends.
Oh, I do want to read those comics. My friend has read the comics, and she said that the Young Avengers comics are like quite a masterpiece. So
yeah.
So what do you rate this movie? Like, what's the grade for it?
I have to read it again.
The movie?
Yeah. I have to read both the Darkhold and the Book of Vishanti a second time.
Even though the Book of Vishanti had like zero significance.
We've been going for 2 hours. I'm not going to talk about that.
I mean, it had one significance because the page that burned had a star on it, and that's America's symbol.
Yeah.
So that's why Strange was like, I have to talk to her, and then she'll be good. But I'd say I'd give it an 88. So it passed.
I'd see it a couple more times.
I was a little bored on the second viewing, to be totally honest.
Really?
Because I think for the second viewing, you get more of a feel
know what to expect.
Well, that too, but also like you get more of a feel for the actual pacing of the movie. Because the first time you see it, you're like, wow, what's going on? But then the second time, like, you know what's happening. So the pacing comes really back at you. But fair. Anyway.
That's fair.
Yeah. So thank you for joining me, Connor.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
And I'll lend you my book anytime you want.
Yeah, I know. I need to get black is a good color on me. I got to get my fingers in
black
there.
And red. We look good in black and red.
We do look good in black and red. But guys, thank you for joining us for our Dyad discussion on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Be sure to leave a like on the video. Comment, what were your thoughts on the movie? Good, bad, ugly, strange? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when I upload future Marvel movie reviews as well as Marvel reaction videos. But guys, that's all I've got for you today. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.